Hey guys, what's up? John from Segments here. Welcome to the 8th episode of Ecom Data Cooler Talk, where we talk about important topics in e-commerce and data next to a water cooler. We started this channel to make data science accessible and give ecom data powers back to the people. So if you like the videos, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It will really mean a lot to me. Today we're going to talk about something that almost everyone has heard of and wants to know, but it's still a little confusing and vague, and that is customer lifetime value, usually known as CLV or LTV. Before we get started, I wanted to follow up with my key takeaways from day 2 of Shopify Unite. If you missed my key takeaways from day 1, please check out episode 7, What is Customer Data? Unite Day 2 started out with their CTO, Jean-Michel Lemieux's keynote about Shopify's technology investment and infrastructure improvements. Here are my 3 key takeaways. Number 1, it's all about security. Shopify has something like 3,000 white hats testing vulnerabilities in the system using dev store data so your data stays safe. They've paid out over $1 million in bounty to these white hats, and with single sign-on rolling out, they want to keep your data yours. Number 2, it's all about globalization. Shopify is building the global retail operating system, and they are building 4 new headquarters in the EU, China, and Australia. They want to enable borderless commerce, and with more local hubs means faster connection and better support. Lemieux compares it to building the Silk Road from 1500 years ago in terms of the engineering complexity to make it all click. Number 3, it's all about speed and scale. With something like 820,000 merchants from large to small, it's a monumental task to keep things stable. And invariably, with more lines of code written into the system, things slow down. To make sites load faster, Shopify is rolling out a new liquid rendering to make themes load 7 times faster, as well as using a new WebP format to store images. He also talked about merchants that are doing 8,000 orders per minute, and that is barely visible in the overall system value, which is meant to instill trust when Black Friday, Cyber Monday comes around. Okay, so let's dive into today's topic. So what is CLV? Well, put simply, customer lifetime value is a predictive metric that measures the total spending of a customer's relationship with your business. In other words, you're trying to measure the total area under the revenue curve over time. It might look something like this. CLV is useful in finding out how much a customer is worth and factors into how much you can spend to acquire a customer measured by CAC or customer acquisition cost. If your CLV for a customer is $50 and you're having to spend over $100 in Facebook ad to acquire a customer, then you're likely to lose $50 per customer. And so the goal then is to how to increase CLV and decrease acquisition cost. Also, I've kind of drawn this curve without really explaining how I got it. And so here's what you do. First, you want to line up everybody by their sign-up date. And maybe for me, I signed up on January 1st, 2019, and I made a purchase on Jan 1st. And then maybe another purchase in March 1st, and another purchase in June 1st, right? So then I have 1 in month 1, 1 in month 3, and 1 in month 6. And another person may have 2 in month 1, and another purchase in month 4, and a third person may have no purchase in month 1, 1 in month 3, and another 1 in month 5, right? And so when you add up all of these curves, you're going to get something like this. And so remember, each line represents a single customer, with each X represents an actual order associated with the dollar figure. So when you sum up hundreds of these lines, you're going to get a revenue curve that looks like this, with the Y-axis represents the revenue, and the X-axis represents the customer tenure in months. And so then what you want to do is look at the revenue under the curve for each month, and then divide it by the total number of customers across the entire period, and you will have a simple CLV for e-commerce. And so far so good, right? Well, yes and no. There's a couple more things we need to explore further, so let's go into that next. So what goes into a CLV calculation? Well, when you Google CLV, you're going to get back a lot of different answers with varying degrees of complexity, and here's a very common one that says CLV is the customer value multiplied by the average tenure, where the customer value is average order value multiplied by the purchase frequency. So this is very similar to the first approach I mentioned, but with my first approach without needing to first define the length of analysis period. Now, there are 2 important things to keep in mind here. Number 1 is that e-commerce is a non-contractual business. Unlike your cable TV subscription, which is typically on a 2-year contract, e-commerce shoppers are free to come and go at any point. Number 2 is that e-commerce shoppers are free to purchase at any point in time, unlike prescription drugs, which is on a fixed time period. And so when a person stops buying, there's a degree of uncertainty whether this person can come back and purchase again or not. And so remember our chart, which kind of ended at 6 months? Well, I didn't exactly specify it, but let's say this is a new store with only 6 months of data. And so what's to the left is what already happened, and it's called as the existing equity. And what's to the right is the future, which is the unknown. Let's call this the future equity. And so the way most CLV calculations differ is in the way how we treat uncertainty in the future. In the simple approach, we will make the assumption that the future purchases behave similar to existing purchases and project forward. In the more complicated, more accurate approach, which we'll call the buy until you die model-based approach, is to look at customers' behavior and purchase patterns in terms of purchase frequency and how much time has gone by since your last purchase. When you're just starting, you won't have enough data for the model-based approach. Instead, you can opt for a simpler approach with about 6 months of stable sales with repeated orders. And once you have enough data, we typically recommend about 1 to 2 years of order history with thousands of orders. Then you can start using a model-based approach, which will likely give you a better overall estimate. Okay, so we've covered a few major differences in CLV using a few examples. You should be well on your way to discover CLV for your business. If you want to get started right away, you can also get your CLV with segments where it's available out of the box. Next, let's take a look at a few example use cases of CLV and why you should care. So what can CLV do for me? Well, CLV is an elusive metric and sometimes hailed as the holy grail for measuring ROI. While there are many useful applications, here are 3 examples to get you started. Number 1, CLV as a KPI. Now that we have CLV, we should be constantly measuring and trying to improve it. We have discussed earlier that CLV is made up of average order value, purchase frequency, and average tenure, so we can undertake initiatives in each of those areas to try to improve CLV. Customer retention is usually the most important. As long as the customer continues spending, we usually see that CLV rises exponentially. With segments, we often notice that loyal customers with 3 or more purchases have 7 to 10 times higher CLV than one-time purchasers. You should also be looking at how CLV is trending each month to see if your effort ends up moving the needle on CLV, and this is also available in segments. Number 2, CLV by channel. You can calculate your CLV based on the acquisition channel to find out which channel is the most profitable with the highest CLV, whether they found you through search, Facebook, Instagram, or email campaigns. That can help you align your resources based on the most profitable channel to your business. Another common use case we see is to understand the value of adding a subscription to your business. We've analyzed the CLV for subscription customers versus regular customers and found them to be 3 to 5 times more valuable than regular customers, even with discounted pricing baked into subscription. Number 3, CLV for marketing and support. Start measuring CLV for different segments of your business and start prioritizing accordingly. With the RFM, you can readily see how valuable each customer is, and for those high CLV customers who are about to churn, you might be willing to offer more incentives in order to keep your business. This also applies to customer support, where you can tailor the urgency and the level of response according to how valuable each customer is. If your MVP customer with the 10x higher CLV is having issues with the order, you may want to jump in personally and make sure that it gets resolved quickly. In summary, we looked at what is CLV, what goes into the calculation of CLV along with a few watchouts, as well as a few useful applications of CLV to finding the most profitable channels, as well as prioritizing marketing efforts. If you have more questions, you can always find us on Facebook or LinkedIn or through our app segments. Keep in mind that CLV is a predictive metric meant to approximate the total value of a customer. As with all approximations, it's never exact and can change based on the business setting. For example, maybe your store has grown so much that the CLV of today varies drastically from the CLV of 2 years ago. However, as long as you follow the guidelines and practice common sense in your reasoning, CLV can be a very useful tool to understand, measure, and prioritize areas of the business. Finally, data is power, and we want to give e-commerce data powers back to the people, so join us and start growing with your data today.